Hi, welcome back to the channel. Michelle, and today I'm going to show you how I prep for homeschool. So if you're new to my channel, I have 3 kids. I have a 12-year-old in 6th grade, an 8-year-old doing 2nd, 3rd grade work, and a 5-year-old son doing kindergarten level work. So we follow a Sabbath schedule, so we have a certain amount of time on and then we take a week off. Normally that time on is 6, 7, or 8 weeks, depending on when holidays or vacations fall. So we usually have 6, 7, 8 weeks on, one of those, and then we'll have a week off. So for that week off, which is right now, this current week, I plan for the next set of weeks. So I'm going to take you through this week and show you kind of how I do that, because I do split it up. I do a little each day during the week. That way I'm not spending, hours at a time doing things. And we are also in the home stretch of our year. We have 3 months left of our school year, so a lot of things is just wrapping it up. So there's not a ton of prep work left for me to do. I want to make that clear that, towards the beginning and middle of the year, prep work is a little different than the home stretch of the prep work. So I'm going to turn around and show you how I prep for the upcoming weeks of school. So the first thing I bring out for prepping is I bring out our yearly calendar, and I bring out my kids' calendars, their schedules that are on our wall. So for this, it's pretty easy. We are currently on this week. This is the week I'm filming right here. We're on Monday. So I need to count how many weeks we have until our next break. So we have 8 weeks. That tells me that I have to prepare stuff for the next 8 weeks. And this is beneficial because, one, I'm not constantly trying to prepare everything on a weekly basis. That can be a lot and overwhelming. And if something comes up where someone's sick or I'm not feeling well, maybe I don't want to prep that week. So if I'm doing that ahead of time, I'm preparing myself for success. So I have 8 weeks of school that I need to prep. So the next thing I look at is my kids' schedules. Again, this has not changed very much since I put my schedule video. This is my oldest right here. This is my 8-year-old, and this is my 5-year-old. So what I'm just going through, I'm marking down what I know I will have to prep. Because again, we use a lot of the same constant curriculum, so I know how to use and what's expected and what the teacher guide is going to ask of me. So that is a beneficial thing of using a lot of curriculum you're familiar with, and consistency is that it's a lot easier to prep. So I'm going to make a list of things that need to be done, and I'll just go line by line. So for my son, I know I will have to look over his math with confidence, see what supplies we're going to need for that for the week. And then core knowledge, I'm going to have to see if there's anything I need to print or if I need to put any of the readers on our tablet or the teacher guides on mine. Because he started kindergarten, I'm not sure I have all those on that will last for the next 8 weeks. So that's all I'm going to have to do for him. And then let's see, my 2nd grader, which will be here. I know for her, I'm going to have to look over math. I look over math on a weekly basis to kind of teacher prep, to teach math lessons. I'm not going to do that until towards the end of the week. That way it's fresh in my head. So when I go to teach it next Monday, I know what I'm doing. I will have to print some more math facts for her though, because she's doing multiplication table practice. So I need to print some of that. All about reading level 3 is already prepped and ready to go. There's nothing I need to do with that. Grammar is Michael Clay Thompson. I'm going to have to look over what she's doing with that because I believe she just finished the first book and we're going into Practice Island. So I'm going to have to prepare that. Core knowledge, 3rd grade, same thing with my 5-year-old. I'm going to have to make sure I have the last of her units downloaded and everything prepped and printed for that. And then Spanish, I will also have to look over the lesson for that and prepare myself and make any copies if I need to. So that's what's on the list for her to do. Then my 6th grader, same thing, math. I will look over that math lesson towards the end of the week. Health, I have to make sure I have the pages marked in her health book that she's currently reading. Also, I read it over to make sure I'm prepared for discussion. And Michael Clay Thompson, I'm going to have to check on that because she also just finished a book, so I need to make sure we are prepared to start the next book. Vocabulary, that's nothing I have to prep, she just does the next one. Phonetic Zoom, nothing I have to prep, she just does the next lesson. Lightning Literature, same thing, I will look over the lesson and what she's learning in the student book. And that helps me prepare it that if she'll need help or I know she'll need help, I kind of write in there, work with mom on that. And then I also make sure I have the book because she just finished a poetry unit, so she'll be starting a new book. So I have to make sure that's in her cabinet. She's no longer doing IEW, she has finished it for the year. So she's just doing the Lightning Literature writing. That's accompanied with that, and she just uses the skills she's learned from IEW to do that, and that works really well. It's actually quite easy for her. So for example, last week for poetry, she wrote her own poem using the things that were taught in that specific week's lesson. So I will have to do that. And one thing I want to do for her too that I marked down for math is I want to also print her some math fact worksheets. I've noticed that she's making some simple errors with multiplication in regards to 6s and 8s. So I want to print her some copies when I'm printing that for my oldest to make sure she's practicing those, because I've noticed in her work she's having some difficulty remembering those math facts. So that is everything that is independent work, or specific work that is to their age. Then we go into group subjects. History, I will just look over. Again, we are almost wrapped up with history, so I kind of want to see how many more lessons we have to go through. There's not a ton of prep with this work. There's not a ton of prep with history. It's literally just doing the next lesson. Everything is in core knowledge laid out for you really well. You just click on the links. I already talked about Spanish. Art, I'm going to look at to see what our next lesson is to make sure we have the supplies necessary. Social justice, we're finishing up Blessings of Liberty with core knowledge. And this is really cool because they're actually going to be giving a persuasive speech. So I want to, and we're almost nearing the end where they're preparing to give their speech. So there's a couple resources I want to look into to kind of help with that. Science, I will have to look over our science lessons and make sure I have planned for the next 8 weeks in science. Philosophy is just reading the next part, so there's not a ton of prep in that. So after writing all that down, this is my to-do list. Kindergarten, 2nd grade, 6th grade, group subjects are down here. So that kind of gives me what I need to do for the week. So I'm ready and prepared. So normally I like to start from youngest to oldest and then do group subjects. Group subjects actually will probably be the most prep work I have to do. But I can probably get K done today. So let's start with that. So for my son, I'm going to have to look over his math lesson. I'm going to have to make sure the core knowledge is downloaded and printed, and that's it. So that's pretty easy to do. So I'm going to get out his Math with Confidence. Again, this is pretty easy, and I've done this with my 8-year-old prior. So I'm familiar with how to do this. I just want to make sure that I have any supplies on hand and I'm familiar with the lesson we're teaching, so it just goes smoother. So this just is me gathering supplies and reading through the lesson. That's it. So I just looked over his lessons and got the supplies I needed. I need some index cards. I needed his number cards, and then he does have some blocks he'll be using, but that's in a box already. So I do have this little pencil case that I use for him, and I just use the inside pocket to keep his All About Reading cards, and then any manipulatives or extras he's going to need for math. So that is done. And again, K is not difficult level work. So math is done already. That only took a few minutes. Next, I'm going to look at core knowledge. So for core knowledge, I'm going to go through and figure out which ones I have to download. So we've done nursery rhymes, we've done the 5 senses, we just finished stories. So we will be starting with plants. And then I look at my kid's Amazon tablet and I see what I've had. This is the student readers downloaded on here. So I can get rid of stories because we finished that. And I only have plants downloaded here, which tells me I need to download the next set of readers on here for us to do in the next 8 weeks. So I need to download the readers on here. And then I do believe I downloaded all the teacher guides on here. Yes, all the teacher guides are already saved on here. I believe 9 is the last. So it looks like presidents and symbols is the last one, which is on there. Okay, so the teacher guides are all completely downloaded. I don't need to worry about that on my tablet. So all I have to do is download the readers here, and then I need to take his folder that contains all of his worksheets that go with the units and go through it. So I'm going to go through and take out the ones he's completed. If there's anything I want to save for his portfolio, I will do that, and then see what I need to print for the next few units. So you can see here I already have plants ready to go, but that is the only one. So that tells me that I need to, on top of downloading the student readers on here, I need to print out the worksheets that go with the next couple reader units that will get us through the next 8 weeks. So that's what I'm going to work on right now. So I'm about to download the last part I need to, and I just want to point out that I'm only downloading the flip book. Again, the teacher guide is already on my tablet here. So the only thing I'm downloading is the flip book on my kid's tablet. So this doesn't take long at all. I had to do a couple units. But one thing is I only use core knowledge for the listening and learning strands, so content knowledge. I don't use the skills section, so I'm not downloading any of the skills portions of this, just the listening and learning strands. Now I'm going to go through, and this is going to be the longer part, I'm going to go through those units and actually print out the worksheets that go through them. But again, everything's already downloaded and ready to go, and that will take my son definitely into summertime with those kindergarten units. So I decided to download the rest of what was left for kindergarten, but that will take him well into the summer and maybe even into next year. We see how quickly he goes through it. But now I'm going to go through, I already have plants printed because I did that in a previous, and I'm not going to print all of the units because I do think that is a lot. I'm going to print probably at least 4. I think we'll be able to get through at least 4, if not less, in the next 8 weeks. So that's my plan, which means the next prep time I have will be, I'll have to print the remainder of the units that have left. So I'm going to start printing now. But this is a good point to show you that if I was doing this on a weekly basis, how time consuming it could be that I'm printing everything, making sure everything's downloading. If I'm doing it on this week I have off where I can take a little bit of time and not be overwhelming, it saves me time in the future. So I'm going to start printing. So one thing I wanted to point out is what I print from the teacher guides, at the end of the teacher guides, or the worksheets that go with those specific units. So I always print out the trade book recommendations, and I will pick a couple of these up during that unit that we're doing it. So again, it's really easy to find the resources you need. So I will print that, and then I do not print every single sheet. So if it's a pausing point, I will print it. If it's one of these take-home things, I won't print that because that's obviously meant more for a school setting. But anything that's cut and paste, direct activities that go with that specific unit, I'm going to print it out. So these are the things I'm going to print out. I will not print out the answer keys, especially for this age group. I don't think that's necessary. I should be able to tell what the answer is. Same thing with the domain assessments. If it's just a smiley face thing, so usually you ask them the questions and they're yes and no questions. So if they know if it's a yes answer, they circle the smiley. If it's a no, it's a frowny face. Now, you could totally do this with your kid. I just have my son tell me yes or no, or thumbs up, thumbs down. That saves me a little bit on printing. I don't think he really cares if he circles the smiley faces. But something like this, where it's specific pictures, obviously the question's asking a specific thing, he is going to be doing that. I do think it's good for, fine motor skills, but also learning early test-taking skills is also important, being able to recall the information. So those are the things I'm going to print for each unit. It is 11:42, so I did write down what time I started doing this, and it was 11:22 when I started printing. So it took me 20 minutes to print, but as you can see, I have the farm unit printed. And again, it's not a ton of pages. At least in this grade level, it's not a ton you need to print. I got the Native American unit, which again is just 3. And I have had questions of my thoughts on because this one is, one of them we're going to be talking about is also Columbus. My thoughts on that. This is not my kid's only exposure to these areas. Every November we do Native American Heritage Month study that he participates in. Same with, he started participating with our history. So this is not his only exposure to these topics, but I do think contextual knowledge aimed at his age group specifically is helpful. So Kings and Queens I think had the most, which he'll really like. We're going over, Snow White, Cinderella, those stories. So those are all printed and ready to go, the next 4 units. So I will put that in his folder. I've already gone through and chosen the things for his portfolio. So as you can see, everything for him is done for today. So I think that's all I'm going to work on today. So probably next I will tackle my 2nd grader, then after that my 6th grader, and then I will do group subjects. So that is kind of a quick view of how I do this section. Next one will be 2nd grade. Day 2, so I'm going to be working on my 2nd grader. I need to do math again. I'm not going to do that till the end of the week. I need math facts. I can print those. I need to look over Michael Clay Thompson. I need to make sure I have core knowledge 3rd grade downloaded and printed, and Spanish for her. So that's what I'm going to work on. So first thing I'm going to do is get out her math facts and see which ones I need to print. So it is 121. We'll see how long all of this takes me. So luckily I have all the math facts papers saved on my computer, so I just need to print those. Let's finish printing the next set. And again, I made a set of these for my oldest that will go in her stuff, but this should be plenty to get us through. So that is done. Then math facts is done for my 6th grader as well. On to Michael Clay Thompson. So for Michael Clay Thompson, she is just about finished with this. We have a couple sentence analysis to do. And I want her to do, I have it marked in the teacher manual, the post-test. This is where we are in her book. And then the pink I have are some activities I want her to do. One of them being the Grammar Island post-test, which is in the back in the teacher resources. And then some just different activities to round up the end of the book. So I know she'll be finishing that. And I did print this previously in this for her to use when she's doing her sentence analysis. And again, this is found on the Facebook page for Michael Clay Thompson. And then same with the implementation guide, because I bought all the copies used. It didn't come with a teacher guide. You can find these on the Facebook group as well under the files section. So I know she'll be doing that, and she's gonna be starting building language. So I have that here. So I know she's going to be starting that, and I do have a specific, from the Facebook group, working through that. Now there are different, as you can see, guides that people have come up with, different ways you can do it. I just do a combination of what works for us. Sometimes doing multiple books at the same time. Usually we do this book by itself, we get into building language, and then we bring in Practice Island with building language. We work through that. Once we get through building language, which is just vocabulary, we go into Sentence Island, and that is done alongside, at least the way we do it, Practice Island as well. So she'll eventually be doing Sentence Island and Practice Island together as well. So for me, in the next 8 weeks, I know we will be going through this. We're not going to get through this, I don't think, fully, because we only do it once a week. Or no, we do it 3 times a week. I do it once a week with my oldest. So I know we're going to finish out this, do the post-test. We're going to go into building language. And then I want to start having her do some Practice Island while she's doing that. So because I have a used copy, I'm going to go through and make some copies through the student manual I have. Yep, right here. I'm going to go through and make some copies and print out some sentence analysis for her to do. So I need to make copies. I'm printing and copying some of the Practice Island right now. Again, you could buy the practice book It's not that expensive. I think it's like 12 bucks, but I already have it. I'm gonna make use of the things I have and just do the long process of copying and printing. But while that's happening, I can look over Spanish, see where we're at. So it looks like, so we usually do a chapter in about 2 weeks. So the first week we go over the vocabulary, and then when we do the songs, and then we do the worksheets that go with it, and then the following week, because we do Spanish twice a week, the following week we'll go over the vocabulary again, and then do the extra activity in the back of the teacher manual. Now, she does do her cards on a daily basis, though, her flashcards, just because you have to be exposed to it on a daily basis to really get world language. So she did 14, I know, last week, which means we will be doing the activity, which I believe I prepared already, my last one. Yes, so she's going to be doing a scavenger hunt. I already have the cards printed out, and I have the details for the scavenger hunt in Spanish, so that's taken care of. So next week's already done, because we'll do the cards next week and the activity. And then the following week, she's going to be doing a whole new section, which tells me I need more index cards, because we are running low on that. Now is a good time to go through and realize supplies I will need on hand. So again, she'll spend one day doing the cards. We'll do the songs and the review sheets. And then we will go over to the activity. I'll look at, see if there's an activity. All right, there's no chapter 15 activity because it's review. So we will just do that. So I think planning 2 weeks ahead is fine with that. This is something that can honestly be done on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, so that's not too concerned. But I do want to have an idea of where I'm going for next week. So nothing I need to prep there. Everything is ready to go. Go check on Michael Clay Thompson, see how the copying is going. So Spanish is done. I can mark that off. Next, I need to look at core knowledge and make sure I have everything downloaded and printed. She has 3 units left for core knowledge, language arts, 3rd grade. Again, we just do the listening learning strand. So I'm gonna make sure I have the teacher guides on here and I have the student readers on here. And then I'm going to check her folder and make sure the next set of worksheets are done. Now for this one, I'm not going to remove the old worksheets yet because intermixed in here, I think she just started a new unit before we went on our week break. So she hasn't finished that unit yet. So I'm gonna keep these in here. I'm not gonna go through these for her portfolio till we finished all these. So I can tell here I have 1, 2, okay, all 3 units I know are printed and ready to go in her folder. Okay, teacher, or the student readers are on here. And the teacher guides are all on here. So that is good to go. Core knowledge is ready to go. And I do have plans for her, what we will do when we finish 3rd grade, but I don't think that's gonna be within the next 8 weeks, so I don't have to worry about that. So the only thing I have left for her is I'm gonna do math. That's gonna be later in the week, looking over the lessons. I need to finish copying my Clay Thompson. It is 2:09, so I spent about 48 minutes doing all this. So I did print 1 through 24 because she does this 3 times a week. We have 8 weeks left. Do the math there, 24. And like I said, it took around 48 minutes to complete everything on my list here, minus math, which I'll do later in the week. So that's it. I'm done for today. Tomorrow I will work on my 6th grader. So hers, I'm gonna, again, wait to do math till later in the week. We'll be looking over health, looking over Michael Clay Thompson, looking over lightning literature. I already did her math facts, scribbled that off for today. So hers will actually probably go pretty quick tomorrow because I don't have a lot of printing and copying you can do. You can see I did a lot of printing and copying with my 2 younger children. Hers is a lot more straightforward. So that is Tuesday. Day 3, I'm gonna work on my 6th grader. So again, I'm gonna wait for math. I need to do health, Michael Clay Thompson, lightning literature. So I'm gonna start with health. And for this, she just reads a series of books that I pick out that I think are good topics that we need to discuss together. She's been currently going through this. Really, really enjoy this book and the positivity it puts around periods. So I'm going to make sure I have the next section tabbed for her because I do section it out so I can make sure I'm familiar with what she's reading. So that is sectioned out and I'm familiar with what she's reading. That's good to go. So next would be Michael Clay Thompson. So she finished Grammar-Town. We did that. That is done. I can put that upstairs for when my next child is ready for it. So for Practice-Town, I have the teacher manual, but I didn't have the student book because I bought this as a set used and it didn't come with a student book. So I just bought the student copy online for $12. And it was actually kind of nice because I could print all of the papers instead of copying them like I normally do. So I've already done that when I bought it last week. Those are all printed and ready to go, and she will do sentence analysis. And this is something I printed along too, so she can have a reminder, kind of a summary of it. And she did the post-test of Grammar-Town last week. So she's ready to start doing the sentence analysis, and she's ready for Paragraph-Town. Now next, after Practice-Town, I believe, is Caesar's English. I don't have that. It's vocabulary. I think we'll be fine without it. I do have Caesar's English too, because I bought that in a package already. But I think it's fine. She's good with the vocabulary. So she'll do Practice-Town, and then we will start Paragraph-Town together. And again, this is just reading and going through. I have to say that this went particularly well with Lightning Literature grade 6 that she's doing now. A lot of it crossed over, and we were talking about similar concepts. So seeing it from different angles was actually really good for her. So there's nothing I need to do for that. Like I said, Paragraph-Town is just reading together. I will just read and we'll discuss it, and she will do her sentence analysis. So that's already taken care of, so I don't have to worry about that. Again, the older grades, I find there's less prep work if you're prepared and ready for things. So that's Michael Clay Thompson. Last would be Lightning Literature. So for this, she's starting a new book, Roll of Thunder, Hear Me Cry. So what I will do is I will mark the first set she's going to read, and then she will mark the sets after that, because she actually prefers to tab her own books. So we will be here. And first thing I'm going to look at is what she's going to be covering this week, because if it's something she's going to need my help with, I will write in there, need help, or do work with mom. So she's going to be going over theme, writing book reports, supporting textual evidence, and writing business letters. None of this, I predict, she will need my help with. So I'm not going to write in here that she has to do it with me. If there comes a time where she has questions, of course she'll approach me. That's not an issue. But these are concepts we've already gone over before, so I don't think it'll be a surprise for her. So I will put that bookmark back in. And again, I just prepped this for a week in advance because I want to look over the lessons and be familiar with them, but not so far ahead that I forget what the lesson was. So I'm just going to mark her. So it said, read the author's note through page 15 of chapter 1. And again, for my daughter, this is not a ton of reading at all. She could do a lot more than what's assigned in Lightning Literature. That's never been an issue with her. So that is ready to go. I will look over her reading or writing assignment because she has finished IEW for the year. She's doing the writing assignments assigned in Lightning Literature, and those are in the teacher guide. So they're going to be writing a book report. So she will just have to choose. So yeah, this is going to take her through on how to write a book report, which again, she's also familiar with, so I don't anticipate a lot of difficulty with that. And they give her 2 weeks to do it, which is a ridiculous amount of time, especially if you come from doing IEW, where you write, an entire essay in a couple days. So this is, I do not anticipate being an issue for her at all. So that takes care of health, that takes care of Michael Clay Thompson, lighting and literature. So as you can see, a lot of hers is already taken care of. And again, that's just doing prep work ahead of time. She's finishing things. And the older grades, there's more work that's theirs than necessarily the teachers. There's a lot of prep teacher time and making sure you're ready to teach, but a lot of the work is more on them opposed to the younger grades. So because that was pretty quick, like 5 minutes, I think I'm gonna try to tackle some of the group subjects. So I'm gonna start with art first, and we're using these for art. So again, I'm just checking over the lesson to make sure I have the materials I need. Looks like we're gonna be learning about nature and landscape art. And there's usually a student activity, and then usually the next lesson is a full, So it looks like they're gonna be making a nature scene using oil pastel. So I have all that stuff. I have sketching paper. And because the first 2 lessons are related, so the first one is landscape art from perspective, and then the second one, it looks like they're gonna be using bird's eye view. So I will combine those lessons because you can see it's not very long. And I will just give them an option of which student activity they want to do. If they want to do just the nature scene, or if they want to do the bird's eye view. But that's, again, have all the supplies, have oil pastels, have sketching stuff. That's not an issue. Nothing I need to prepare for that. So art is pretty simple. And again, I only do the next lesson, so it's fresh. Next would be science. So we are finishing up 5th grade core knowledge science. So I do have the teacher guides. We have a couple units left. We just finished modeling Earth systems. So we have, 4 will be protecting Earth's resources, and we have astronomy left. We've already covered the human hormones and reproduction. We did that when we did our human body study a year ago, so we do not need to cover that. And then in the last couple months, they've actually added 2 new units, a computer program unit and a using science knowledge unit. So my plan is to at least get through 4 and 5, Earth's resources and astronomy. If we still have time left in the school year, we will tackle most likely the using science knowledge, because I do the computer programming in a different section, usually during summer with the kids. And they have 1 for each grade level. So my plan is to finish those 2 up, and if we have time, we'll do the using science knowledge. So I have the teacher guides downloaded on here already. I took care of that. Again, we're wrapping up the end of the year, so that's less work I have to do. The student readers are on my Mac desktop because we read that together. So now I need to just look at the science. So these are the pacing guides that are in the teacher resources. So you can see here we finished up modeling Earth. And again, I won't go through all the papers that we did for this until the end of the year, and I figure out what I want in their portfolio. So you can see here's all Unit 1, Unit 2, all in here. So I've already printed out the last 2 units, Unit 4, Unit 5, again, past me was kind to future me. Well, one thing I'm gonna have to go through is in the teacher resources for each unit, there is supplies that you will need to complete the units. So I will need to go through and see if there's any supplies I need on hand. And I do like to briefly go over some of the lessons, because you can see in here, I do put in little notes if we're watching an online video. If there's something hands-on I need, some type of material for experiment that I know I need to have it ahead of time, I will put it in the notes section. That way I know for that week. So when I'm doing my weekly planning on Saturdays, I just have to look at what I've already laid out and said, okay, I know I need to have this for this week. Instead of doing it on a weekly basis, taking this chunk of time now will actually save me time when I'm actually teaching homeschool. So I'm going to go through my teacher guide on my tablet and mark if we're doing any special activities in here and if I need to buy any resources or materials for those experiments or demonstrations. So I just went over both of these and I kind of divided out to see how much time we have left, which means we will be ending this at probably the end of May, maybe into June, which is fine because usually end of school is end of May. So if we have a week of June where we have to finish up science, that's fine. But you can see here that I do 2 lessons a week. That's usually how we do it, Thursday and Fridays. So Thursday will be 1 lesson, Friday will be the second part. So I did kind of divvy them up. And there are times where when we're going through it, a lesson ends early or doesn't take as long, then we might bring on another lesson. But I do try to divide them with, lessons that go together well. I've gone through and you can see here, I've written in marker items I will need. If there's a circle around it, like you can see over here, there's a circle on the line. That means it's something I will have to either print out or pick up. So, for example, I need a community map of our local community. I need foam cups. I don't have either of those on hand, so that's something I will have to get ahead of time. And I will do that when I do my weekly planning. I'll sit down on Saturday and just look this over and be like, okay, well, I need foam cups and magnifying glasses. I'll add it to my list so we have it for the week that we do that demonstration or experiment. And I also put in there any online videos we'll be doing. Again, Core Knowledge has the online resources. You just click for what chapter you're on. It's already all there. Same thing with astronomy. I went through and wrote the things I would need. For example, I'm going to need painter's tape. I'm going to need toothpicks, tennis ball. So things I might not necessarily have on hand, or I have a tennis ball, but it's going to take me a while to figure out where it is because we're in winter. So that's something I circled that I will have to be aware of, but that's all ready to go. That is going to end our science for the year. So I do not think we'll be getting into that extra unit, but it is cool with, when I was looking for the ecosystem one, it's project-based learning, which is really cool. So I'm excited for that. So science is done. Next would be social justice. So what we are finishing the year for social justice is Blessings of Liberty with Core Knowledge. It's a language arts unit. So we're learning about specific people who had an impact in social justice, civil rights. And then we are writing, the kids actually chose a specific topic, social justice issue that they are passionate about. And we've been slowly writing a persuasive speech about it, which they will give at the end of this. So you can see here, we have maybe 3 weeks left of it. So we'll finish it before the end of the year. And that's fine. I do have another little Justice Leaders box we can use to finish out the year. But they've been, hold on. My son needed help with his snack, so we had to stop for a minute. So you can see here they have, and it does have things like spelling in here and grammar, and that has actually been interesting to go through as a group subject. So one of the things we talked about was prefixes, which I think is good for both my kids to know. Also, we talked about commonly misspelled words and went over how we tell the difference. So I do like that it's a language arts unit because that is something we've never actually done as a group subject before, is language arts. So I do like that it's bringing in social justice, but also getting them involved. And they've both chosen their topics and are both currently working, obviously at different levels. Obviously, what I'm expecting of my 8-year-old is very different than what I'm expecting from my soon-to-be 12-year-old when it comes to work. My 12-year-old can absolutely write out her entire persuasive speech with no issues. But one thing I wanted to add in here is a video, which I already found online, talking about tips for persuasive speech. How to stand, what to do with your hands. I think that would be beneficial for my girls to watch. So I want to make sure I added that video in. And I found it because last week when we did a video, was talking about the importance of speech. So bringing in things like alliteration, rhyming, patterns, and they used examples like Martin Luther King and how specific words he used and imagery, allegory, all those things, how they can be used in a speech to help that speech be more impactful for the people listening to it. So we watched that last week, and that was actually one of the resources provided by Core Knowledge, which I really appreciate. And from that, I found another video talking about how to present ourselves well during a speech. So they're going to be working on that, and I've already looked over this. I looked over it last week when we finished that unit because I knew we were coming towards the end, and I wanted to see what was left to be done. So we will be doing that. So there's nothing I have to do for that. I already have that video saved that they need to do. All their information is in here that we've been working through the persuasive speech. And like I said, when we finish this, I have a little Justice Leaders box that we can finish the year off, which requires no prep for me. So last would be history. So I have social justice on this side and history on this side. We're doing Core Knowledge, United States history. So it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks left. And the 5th week will be the end of the unit assessment. So again, there's nothing I need to prep for these. As you can see, this is the pacing guide that they give you. We read a chapter, and then we have our additional activities, which I really like. It brings in our primary source documents, dives deeper. We have our big questions, vocabulary, and questions throughout the book that we go through as a group. So this has all been following the same format. There's nothing I need to really prep. And this is our 2nd year of going through United States history, so the kids are already familiar with it. So again, they have some background knowledge going into it. There's nothing I will need to do for that. So history is done. I'm already prepared in that. So that means for tomorrow, Thursday, the only thing I'm going to work on is math, looking over the lessons for my 2nd and 6th grader and preparing myself to be able to teach those in the coming week. So it is 12:50 p.m. and up here I wrote what time I started. I started at 12:10. So 40 minutes. I've spent 40 minutes on group subjects. I think I spent probably the most, 40 minutes on group subjects in 6th grade. And then 2nd grade probably was the most. I believe it was 48 minutes if I remember correctly. So that's it. Tomorrow I will work on math, but that gives you kind of an overview of how I prep group subjects in 6th grade. It is Thursday, the last day I'm working on this. It's 1:21 p.m. So that's my start time. So the only thing I have left to do is math for my 2nd grader and 6th grader. So we're going to work on that. First, I'm going to start with my 2nd grader for 2 reasons. 1, hers is easier. 2, I've already taught this level of dimensions already with my oldest daughter, so I'm familiar with it. And I have a feeling my older child's will take me longer to go through. So my 8-year-old has been working through this. We're not doing exactly how it's listed because she catches on pretty quick, but I'm having her learn kind of the trick or technique that goes with it. So we're going to be doing 7s. And again, I've taught this with my oldest child, so I'm familiar with how to teach it. So we're going to be doing the trick for 7s, and she already has her math facts printed out and ready to go. I do not use the ones in the back because when we tried to use those, she was getting some anxiety about it. She didn't like the format of it, so we just do the little sheets of paper instead. And we will do the game that's usually involved the first couple days. So I'm just going over to refresh my memory. Okay. So that is good to go. Nothing I need to do there. So she is finishing up her test from 2B, and I thought it'd be a good idea because she's doing the end of 2, the entire level of 2 test this week. And I wanted to do that coming back from a week off to kind of see how much she remembered. So she has this Monday. I did break it up because it's pretty long. Tuesday. So yeah, I did this last week when I was going through Thursday. So all next week, she's going to be taking tests out of this. She's going to be doing the end of chapter 2B test, and then she's going to take the cumulative end of grade 2 test for math. So that is everything she's doing for next week. That's already pre-written down because I did it last week when she was finishing up the first section of her test. And there's nothing for me to read or look over in this because it is a test and she reads now independently, so she does not need my help for that. So that's good. But the following week after that, she will be starting 3A, and I have that ordered and ready to go. Again, I'm not going to prepare that lesson now because I do it on Saturdays when it's fresh, and also I've taught this level, so I don't anticipate it taking a lot of time. So that actually makes that pretty easy. So now on to my almost 12-year-old. So yes, she's in 6th grade doing 5. I've talked about this in the past. We brought her home from public school in 3rd grade. We backed her up a level. She took MAP testing last year, absolutely no issues. She's exactly where she's supposed to be, so I have no concern about the leveling being a little off. She's finishing chapter 8, so this is the last unit in 5A. I have 5B ready to go upstairs. So I'm going to label the days, what we'll be working on. So we do the textbook lesson together, and then she does the workbook independently. I will usually half the amount of problems, and if I know she's getting them wrong, then we'll do the other half of problems together. But normally she has no issues. I am a big fan of I show her how to do it, we do it together, and then she demonstrates it independently. So first I'm just going to go through and label all the days. That way she can easily flip to it. And then I'm going to actually go through and read the lessons and mark which problems I want her to do in the workbook. Now that I've gone through and labeled what she's working on each day, I'm going to actually go through the teacher guide for the entire week and look over each lesson so I am prepared to teach it. If there's any extra games or like the black line masters I need to print out, I'm going to do that. So that's where the chunk of this time will be taken, but I do think it's really important to look over the lessons prior to teaching in math, especially if it's something you haven't done in a really long time, or if it's something that's taught in a completely different way than you're familiar with. Sitting down and waiting until right before you teach your kid, I don't think is helpful. So that's what I'm going to spend my time doing right now. It is 1:55. I just finished, so I spent 34 minutes looking over math. And again, it would normally be longer, but because my younger daughter is just taking tests this week, it doesn't take as long. But I went through the teacher guide, read all the lessons, know how the lesson's going, how to teach it. I went through and marked the workbook, the problems I want her to do independently. So that is, everything is done now and prepped for the next 8 weeks. And again, I will still every Saturday sit down and look over those few things that I need to do. Like I will look at math the next week. I will look at science, what materials I need to pull for the next week. But doing this prep work ahead of time does really cut down on the prep work in the next 8 weeks. It's more open and go because I've taken the time. As you can see here, it's been a few hours over the course of 4 days that I've taken to really get myself situated and set up for success. I know what I'm teaching. Everything is prepared. I just have to sit down and actually do it. And I can focus most of my energy on doing exactly that, teaching my kids opposed to getting the things ready to teach them. So I hope you found that helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. If not, thank you for watching.